Ozekwe. Okay, Ozekwe. All right. So good morning and welcome to our studio.
Right. Thank you very much. Good morning, listeners. It's very great to be here once again. So thank you very much.
All right. So we're talking hepatitis, and I think we need to start from a definition of hepatitis because there's some kind of stigma associated with hepatitis, but I don't think people truly understand what it is. So let's start from that point.
Okay. Hepatitis is simply inflammation of the liver, and inflammation is like a body's response to something that is irritating it. So it's a response. So that's why, for example, if you have an inflamed, if you have an injury to your skin, you see that that place can be red, can be painful, can be swollen, and then sometimes depending on where it happens, you might lose function of that place. So I've just, in a nutshell, told you what the signs of inflammation. These are the major signs of inflammation. So that's what happens to the liver. So that's it. Inflammation of the liver is hepatitis.
Okay, so I understand that the theme for this year's World Health Hepatitis Day is one life, one liver. And then I understand also that we also have one liver. What really is the role of the liver? Because when we understand the role of the liver, then we can understand what hepatitis does to a person.
Okay, the liver actually performs a lot of roles. In fact, every day it performs nearly, according to I think that's John Hopkins, about 500 roles every day. It's a very large organ, quite alright, and then it performs a lot of roles. And one of the roles is involved in processing of nutrients. When you eat, and also in immune response. You understand? And then it's also involved in let's say in production of like let's say now storage, like to perform storage functions.
So it does store?
Yes, it can store. Yes.
Does it store food items, and when we are hungry, it takes from there and gives our body? Because that would be very cool.
No, not food store. Like it's more like processed food, like glucagon. That's more like what you use in processing other food. That's what it stores. It doesn't store the food itself because you eat the food goes the nutrients. So the food goes to the stomach and then it's broken down and then it starts. From there, from the liver, it actually now you talk about excretion. It now transfers to the kidney. It's a very long process actually.
Okay. Yeah. So that's basically what the liver does, and then hepatitis is inflammation of the liver when the liver gets hot. So what are those things that causes the liver to get hot? It's tucked in there in our bodies. I don't even know where the liver is located per se. I know it's somewhere around my abdomen, but if it is tucked in there, what are the things that could lead to this inflammation we've talked about?
Okay, yeah. For this year's the World Hepatitis Day is actually the focus is on viral hepatitis, right?
Okay.
So it tells you that there are other causes. Virus is one.
Okay, maybe let's talk about the other different types of hepatitis.
Okay, okay, yes. Now there are different types. There's the toxin, the one caused by toxins, there's one caused by virus, and there's one caused by autoimmune, like there is your body defense mechanism is fighting against itself. It's more like you have a father now, father, mother, children. Now, normally when a foreign body comes in, like, who is this person? You're not part of our family, right? But now in this case, father, mother, the children are fighting the parent, or the mother fighting the parent. So you're like a member of our family. You're supposed to help us to fight together. It's fighting us. That's what's happening in autoimmune condition.
Okay.
Yes.
So those are the basic types.
Yes.
And you also said that the focus is usually on viral hepatitis. Does it mean that that's the most dangerous form of hepatitis?
Essentially, yes. Okay. Most dangerous and most common. Yes, most common. Yeah, because some drugs actually can cause hepatitis, like paracetamol.
Are you serious?
Yes, because we abuse it a lot. It's one of the most abused drugs.
Hepatitis is inflammation.
Yes.
So drugs can inflame.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And because sometimes they call it, there's this one they call toxic hepatitis, like the one caused by toxins. Now, when you take paracetamol for a long duration of time, it definitely is going to become toxic to the liver. Even vitamin A in excess can become toxic to the liver. And then when that of paracetamol happens, you now start leading to a situation whereby the person is, in fact, it can even lead to death. Is that serious? Yeah.
Okay, so you're still listening to Radio Nigeria Treasure 90.5 FM, and we're looking at the World Hepatitis Day, which comes up 28th of July every year. And one life, one liver. You can call in and share your thoughts with us. The number to call is 0903 853 7092. 0903 853 7092. You can also send us an SMS or WhatsApp number on 0905 490 5592. Ask questions relating to hepatitis and care and all of that. And we have, remember, in our studios, Dr. Uchenna Gojuku Izokwe. Ozekwe. Yes. Yes, he is a medical director, of course, a physiotherapist, and we'll be talking about hepatitis. We've been able to establish that there's inflammation of the liver. We've been able to also establish that the most common form of hepatitis is the viral hepatitis, which is, of course, is more deadly or very common. And then we've also established that taking drugs can lead to hepatitis, especially when you abuse drugs. Because I want to establish that, is it just taking these drugs? Because there are times where you really need to take drugs, and there are people who take drugs all the time, maybe for their conditions and all of that. So at what point does taking drugs like paracetamol become a risk factor in hepatitis?
Okay, yeah. Let me use that of paracetamol because it's very common. It's I still maintain like one of the most abused drugs.
Okay.
So most times, because of the because we already know it has they call it hepatitis.
I think we have a call now.
Okay, right, okay.
Hello, good morning. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Andrew Ajay, as always, for contributing. Okay, so you've heard him. I know he started off, commenting on what I said about the experience in the hospital yesterday. And let me also state here that doctors, I believe, are very responsible, because when they had an emergency at the ward, the doctor had to attend to that particular emergency before he came back. So they do know when emergencies arise and all of that. So okay, yes, we're still talking about hepatitis. We're trying to distinguish between drugs and how they affect us, especially people who really need to take drugs on a regular basis.
Okay. Yeah. I was talking about paracetamol, and because it's very common, it's an over-the-counter drug. You can wake up one morning anytime and get it. So, but the truth about it is that once you use it beyond a particular number of days, like if you notice, whenever you go for prescription, the doctor will prescribe paracetamol for 3 days. Most times, on worst cases, 5 days. That's actually the highest they can do it for.
Okay.
Yes. Most times, what they do is that even if you have to take it again, you have to like stop for a while and continue. Now, the idea is that if they take it for, let's say, consistently for a month, it can become toxic to the liver. And when this happens, the person might end up losing the liver. That's that serious. Now, the problem is people abuse these drugs and they don't look at it that way. That's why we're always very careful when we're prescribing. Many drugs actually are like that, but it's just that we are very, there's what they call, you have to try to, when you're prescribing, you consider a lot of factors. You try to look at, okay, did this patient actually need this drug now, or do I have to? So they just prescribe in that, and that's why they monitor the prescriptions. Okay. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so now that we've established that drugs can cause inflammation to the liver, especially toxins and paracetamol particularly, what other causes of hepatitis do we have?
Okay, we have mentioned virus, we have mentioned drugs, we have mentioned more like toxins, more foods, well, I say sources of food. Now, if you notice, something like, bitter leaf.
Yes.
Bitter leaf is actually, I can say it, clearly here because I've seen it, it can actually be very effective in managing a case like.
Oh, okay. I thought you wanted to say it's not good. I was going to tell
no,
doctor, please don't start.
No, I'm coming. No, I'm just trying to like point, make a reference. Now, you can use it to manage conditions like diabetes, hypertension, and all that. But the interesting thing, because many times when you get it from the farm and all that, and you start using it, it has a lot of toxins that can affect the liver. That's why a doctor will not go and prescribe that. Okay. Yeah, and many people think, oh, it works. Yes, it will work. But then what about the toxins they're already releasing into your liver, and you're overworking your liver? Then alcohol.
We used to wash the liver and remove some of those toxins.
No, it's not. It's in the main ingredients, the active ingredients in the.
Not that one that we are washing.
No, not that one. So it's inside, because no matter how you do it, it's still there. Okay. You ended up reducing it, doesn't mean that it's still not there. You understand? Now there are also alcohol. That one is, a lot of people on this table, alcohol, that one can lead to cirrhosis. And cirrhosis is not doesn't happen overnight. And that's another thing about liver. Most times, liver conditions, you only start feeling it when the symptom. When you notice the symptoms, it's actually when it has progressed. It's not like, okay, just there's an inflammation, and it's when you are progressed. That's when you start seeing it. Then you now go to you for tests. You start seeing a lot of things. That time it already progressed. So it's not like, okay, I just seen it. So that's why it's very, very critical that we have to be very careful about the liver. Things we take. Alcoholism is there. The toxins are there. Drugs are there. So and virus.
You said virus. What kind of viruses and how do they manifest? How do they affect? Because when you say viruses, people don't. When you talk about toxins now and alcohol, these are things that we consume on a regular basis. But when you say the virus, how do they come into the system and affect the liver?
Okay, yeah. Essentially, the viruses that I'm referring to here are hepatitis A, B, C, D, and E. They are the viruses. They call it hepatitis A virus, HIV virus, just like that until E. Now, the thing there is B. One of the things about among all of them, the most critical here is concerning is B. Why B? Is because other ones are there. Like if you have B, they're very likely to have D. But then that of B is because one, it is transmitted through blood.
Okay.
Through blood.
Is that why it's called B?
Yeah. No, it just I don't know, but that's just the how the B is. B is transmitted through blood contact or infected persons. Now, and B, and if you notice, B is also one of the is indicted for people, sexual relations, sexuals and all that. So that's why it's actually one of the critical ones. A is not much of a problem because it's contaminated through food and water.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's why. Now C is also blood too, but then it's actually not as predominant as B, and because B is also can progress to cancer, carcinoma. Yeah, so that's one of the things why it's actually very, very important at this stage.
All right.
Yeah.
So now we're going to able to establish that A, basically food, when you eat food that
and
is
water
contaminated and all of that. But B, it seems like B is the baddest of all of them.
Yeah, he's a bad boy. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and then C and the rest of them. Now that we've been able to establish the causes of hepatitis, now what are they hereditary? Are they things that people inherit? Because we know there are certain medical conditions that people say people inherited. Is hepatitis something that people inherit too?
No, not as hepatitis, but you can inherit conditions that can predispose it to hepatitis, right? So now, like in terms of that C now, mother to child transmission, you understand? So there is always that risk, and then even B2 because it's still blood. There's always that risk about mother because definitely when a woman carries the baby, there's always that blood relationship, that blood contact. So that's always the risk there.
So basically, people who are vulnerable to hepatitis, people mother to child is one of the vulnerabilities.
Yes.
Then people who take in alcohol, abuse drugs, particularly because that's a major challenge we have. Even while I was in the hospital, I had a lot of people who said we're only here because we did self-medication and it did not work. Let us see a second opinion. So I think it's very common for people to self-medicate. So they are vulnerable, basically.
Yes, they are vulnerable, and that's just the challenge now.
Right. So please don't take drugs on your own. Let it doctor. And you said something that is quite interesting. I noticed that whenever drugs are, given by the health professionals, I don't think I've ever seen any drug that lasts for 2 weeks. Especially paracetamol and all these drugs. Usually, 5/7, or I don't know how you guys do it and all of that.
2 weeks
is
or
basically
1 week.
a week and all of that. Okay, so now let's talk about management of this situation. Can it be cured? Hepatitis is something that when it has come to your system, can it be cured or they just manage it till further notice? How does it work?
Okay, yeah. Generally, hepatitis can be treated, yes, but curing is where the issue is because it's virus. Most viruses you can't cure them, you can treat them. Some of them actually maybe can be so maybe less damaging. They can maybe go out of it, like let's say like cough. Now the one that causes cough is virus. Catarrh, all those ones are viruses. But then after a while, you're free, you're good. You understand? Because it's just part of the air and everything, and then you inhale it, and along the line get healed. So that's why when you have those various conditions, you are wasting your time taking antibiotics.
Are you serious?
Yeah, so when you waste your time finish taking it, and you also cause more problem in the society because you are predisposing yourself to antibiotics resistance.
Well, sometimes hospitals do prescribe antibiotics.
That is when there is established that there is a bacterial infection there.
Okay.
Because like you have cough, like you have cough doesn't mean that it must be virus. There could also be bacteria involved.
Okay, now I get the clarification. So when they give you, it's for the bacteria,
yes,
not necessarily for the virus.
Yes.
So antibiotics don't necessarily work for viral infections.
They don't, because they are not. It's antibiotics,
Please,
antibacterial.
I hope you've all heard that. We have another call. Let's see if we can take this call. Hello, good morning. Good morning, Mr. Johnny Jacks. Thanks for calling. Right.
Good morning, sir. Mm-hmm.
Asking the question, how can we help? I know that sounds a bit. I think it's very related to what we are saying, because one of the risk factors is abuse of drugs, and the reason why most people don't do it is maybe cost too. They think about, if I go to hospital, they go bill me. Let me just take paracetamol, take antibiotics, and all of that. So how can we help the hospitals to always be open to attend to them, so they don't think about going to that? That's part of where we're even heading towards now. You know.
Okay. It's I was when I was listening to him, and he's touching at a lot of places, and if I'm to actually respond to it that way, it will be like the main topic for today. You understand? Because when you talk about the strike and all that, it touches a lot of issues.
So we may not deal with
yes,
strike,
yes,
let's deal with what we're discussing now,
yeah, exactly,
and how we can help the situation, especially when it comes to the drug abuse part.
Yeah, the thing there is that it's also very, very vast, because now you have to look at, there's a structure we have in Nigeria whereby a lot of people open pharmacies, patent medicine stores and all that. Many of these people, they regard them as doctors, the people. Now, yeah, but the problem is that the medical doctor, the pharmacist, they studied pharmacology, and every drug that you take into your system has side effects. Essentially every drug. There's hardly any drug that doesn't have side effects. Because what is a drug? A drug is just a chemical that you take into your system that makes some changes in your physiology, body physiology. That's just a very simple way to define a drug. So now, if the doctor is aware of these things, that is why you need him or her to be able to prescribe these drugs in the appropriate way it's supposed to be dispensed. You understand? And that is where the pharmacist comes in. Now, when you visit all those places, they just give you drug. I've seen situation whereby somebody has ulcer, and you see a pharmacist giving him a drug.
Okay, so I think what we need to do, because we run out of time, is how do you know who is qualified to issue drugs when you go to these places? Because I know that people would genuinely want a qualified person to give them drugs, and not just maybe what they call them, auxiliary nurse or whatever. How do you know who these qualified persons are when you go to buy drugs?
Okay, obviously you have to ask if the person is a pharmacist. Because now the doctor most times prescribes, the pharmacist dispense, but then that's not just the work of the pharmacist. Because there are some drugs the pharmacist might look and say, okay, I think instead of giving you this 3 times a day, based on your history, we'll give it to you 2 times a day.
Okay.
The pharmacist actually is knowledgeable enough and qualified to do that. But then when you start delving into that, now you start having professional clashes, and but that's the truth. That's the truth. They have the right. They can say, okay, this drug, 2 times, 3 times a day. I'll give it to you 2 times a day. That's what you need. Okay. It's not like saying that, oh, doctor wrote nonsense. It doesn't say. They just